Good day, everyone. Hope you're all doing well on this Thursday afternoon or Thursday evening or whatever it is in the part of the world you're in. Just to put the finishing touches on what I've been trying to explain over a course of videos, there's one more piece of this that, in my opinion, is the reason there's such a lack of understanding for what's actually happening. Because there's such atheism in the world. There's so many atheists now. And that in itself is a barrier to understanding what's going on. The war between good and evil. And the occultists, the black magicians, the sorcerers, the Satanists, the Luciferians, the Scientologists. So I used to be obsessed with reading about that. Aleister Crowley, L. Ron Hubbard, Crowley's friend Mathers. There's a whole bunch of them. Then we get the Son of Sam murders that took place decades and decades ago. That's all tied into this stuff. The elites who are all into Satanism. They're all Satanists. Every last one of them. It's a prerequisite to be in their club. You know how George Carlin said it's a big club and you're not in it? Well, guess what? If you're not into the occult and Satanism, you're not allowed in. They will not have you. There's a guy named Ronald Bernard who was one of the central bankers, who was a complete Satanist and involved in all that. He had a religious experience where he discovered Jesus all of a sudden, and he actually went to all the elites, the other ones in the club, and said, I'm requesting to leave. I want to leave. I found Jesus. You got to let me out. And boy, they actually did. They let him out. But because he was now a Christian, he's not allowed to be there. He's not allowed to have anything to do with them anymore. He had to literally leave his whole life, which he did, and he goes around now telling everybody about his Jesus experience, how he came to Jesus when he used to be evil as shit. He was one of them. He did all the things they did. They're just pure evil. Sasha Stone did a really famous interview with him. I've put it in the description many times. It's a really famous, well-known video. So they say the devil's greatest trick is convincing everybody he doesn't exist. Yep. That is a fact. That was his most successful move that he ever did. And now we have a whole bunch of people who will tell you, oh, magic is superstition. It's all just silly. The woo-woo stuff, they call it. Here we have our problem. This is why people do not understand what's taking place in this world. Black magic is 100% real. And one of the earliest forms of proof that I ever discovered was reading about Aleister Crowley and discovering that he was in high demand with the elites. If you're elite, you're rich, you're a billionaire, whatever, you've got a private jet, you can go to Paris for breakfast and then get in your jet and go somewhere else. Let's visit Barcelona for a little while. You can do anything you want. You've just got unlimited resources, right? You can just go and do whatever. After a while, you get bored. That's what happens to them. They get extremely bored. So back in the days of Crowley, they got wind of him being able to do some pretty supernatural stuff, which he could. No question about that. It's very well documented. He could do some really far-out stuff. So the elites would pay him large amounts of money to come and do rituals in their palaces, their castles, whatever they were living in. And this went on for a long time. It's not like he got asked once or twice, turned out to be bogus, and no one ever asked him again. He did this a lot. Gave a lot of apparently very intense demonstrations. And, I mean, there was other people could do some stuff too, but Crowley was the master of sorcery and magic. He's the one that put the K on the end of it. Okay, so Magic, that's like a Vegas magician pulling rabbits out of a hat. Put a K on it, which Crowley did. Now you're talking like Kabbalah and stuff like that. That's what Crowley was heavily into, Jewish Kabbalah. The 10 Sephiro, and I mean, it's really intense, complicated, requires high intelligence to understand kind of stuff. And he was, even though he was evil, he was completely evil. But one of the main reasons he was able to be so evil is because he was so intelligent. And he understood these things, these laws of nature, how to manipulate them. He defined magic as affecting change in reality through the use of your own will. Okay, your will. Love under will. That's love is the law. Love under will. That's one of his most famous sayings. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. These people, do you think, if you're one of the people that thinks magic is all just fake stuff, really, do you think the richest, most elite people in the world would bother having something to do with something that's completely bogus? Nope. They've got access to everything that we don't have access to. They're able to discern whether something's real or not. They probably know everything about all the religions that were created, how they were created, why they were created, who created them, how much of them is real, how much of it's watered down. I remember reading one thing one time about how all the religions of the world that were given to the humans, to us, to regular people, were watered down versions of something that's actually a real thing. But we get the watered down versions, and they preserved the real versions of them for themselves. This I believe to be true. It's just like the technology. They hang on to the technology and just drip feed us little bits of it, and what they've got is way beyond anything we see. Totally. They had cell phones in the 30s. There's pictures of the Fabian socialists with cell phones in the 30s. I've seen them myself. So these people are not going to bother with bogus garbage that's just superstition and myths and legends and all the things that people say. Nope. This is one of the biggest problems in this world, is that everyone is so convinced that this material world is all there is, and things like magic are just silly superstition. Wow, I really wish that was true. I really wish that was true. I am a former magician. I used to cast sigils. I did candle magic and different things too, but I was best at sigils. I got quite good at them. I learned from reading Austin Osman Spare's work. He was an artist and occultist. Him and Crowley actually hated each other. But as far as the sigils, Austin Osman Spare was the master of them. And I read his stuff, and I learned his craft, and I started to experiment, and I got very good at it. And it ended up destroying me. It's forbidden for a reason. You shouldn't go near that stuff, ever. It's the most... Well, when it boomerangs and comes back at you, it hits you so hard, and you know as soon as it hits you, oh, that was my own magic that just hit me. It's not pleasant at all. Some people, the boomerang will actually take them out. It'll finish you off. Didn't quite do that to me, but it was close. It was close. It will make you want to end your own life, is what happens. It's all real. No matter what you think. And those in power are all Satanists. Go ahead and call it a conspiracy theory. That's the stupidest term in the world. First of all, a conspiracy theory means you have suspicion that two or more people are planning to do something bad. That's what the term conspiracy theory actually means. But people don't use language the way it's meant anymore. They make up their own. Everybody says, oh, it's conspiracy. It's conspiracy. The word conspiracy means a plan between two or more people to do some bad shit. That's what it means. So when you say that's just conspiracy, you're saying that's just a plan by two or more people to do some bad shit. That's what the word means, but we don't respect our language anymore. We make up all this weird slang, and people twist words on social media, and they mean brand new things now that they don't actually mean. That is actually kind of a form of sorcery too. The social engineers twisting our language the way they do, because language is very powerful, and all the syllables that come out of your lips are making change in the world, whether you know it or not, every time you speak. That's why I'm very careful in here to put out a positive kind of message. I'm educating about negative things, but I'm telling you how negative they are, and suggesting that you steer away from these things. I'm trying to, because every word that comes out of my mouth affects the world in a big way. In ancient Greece, they used to have this person that the government would choose. They'd train him to make announcements to the public. He'd read legislation or whatever, kind of like the town crier in a way, but a little more involved in that. His job was to read things, read official documents out loud. The training that this individual would have to go through was intense and took a long time. And then he would have to train the next person and to take over, because they understood the importance of phonetics and the way you pronounce things, the way you accent syllables, all these things. Using language properly was absolutely paramount to this culture in ancient Greece. I wish I could remember the name of this person. He had a title, but probably not that hard to if you're interested in that, just look it up. You know, the person in ancient Greece who was trained to speak perfectly so he could read official documents and read them in a way that wouldn't do damage. They understood this. That's what sorcery is all about. There's things that affect, I mean, look at this reality. It's messed up. Okay, we think it's a simulation now, some of us. People just don't know what this is. It's all messed up. Quantum mechanics is telling us there's different dimensions, and which there are. That is a fact. There are definitely different dimensions. There is a spirit realm. People who've never done psychedelics or dove into magic, or, you know, I've done magical operations that gave me abilities temporarily. It was being given to me by a demon, is where I was getting it. I was accessing the spirit realm and being assisted by an entity that I shouldn't have been playing around with, but that's what happened. One time I had the ability, I could make candle flame go up just by putting my hands over it and raising it up like that, and the flames got higher. That's real magic. People were there with me and saw that. I used to do my ceremonies with other people. Some wild stuff happened, really wild stuff. I had one person looked at me one day, and her jaw went down to the floor. I'm like, what? And she's just shaking, and her eyes were this big. I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, there's a fairy above your head. She's like, it's about this big, and it's hovering right above your freaking head, man. And it was. I caught a glimpse of it as I did that. I invoked several different things. I invoked one thing that I think is still living in the house that I was in at the time. It was still there when I left. I know that for sure. It's one of the reasons my wife left, because I'd invoked something that was now living in the house with us. It's not myths. It's not legends. It's not superstition. It's all real. It's all real. And those in power, those who have control over this world, understand this very well. Very, very well. The Scientologists. Everybody thinks they're crazy. Well, L. Ron Hubbard was definitely pulling a scam, but he was using real occult stuff to do it. So Scientology is not all bullshit. Some of the things in Scientology are actually real. Created by L. Ron Hubbard, someone that, well, Crowley called him an absolute buffoon. He couldn't stand L. Ron Hubbard either. But L. Ron Hubbard did have some serious access to many things that most of you just don't understand. and don't think are real. But remember, I'm going to say it one more time, and I'll just end it there. The devil's greatest trick was convincing you he doesn't exist.